Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We have a really interesting show planned today. During the first hour, I'm going to be joined by Shannan, Yorton, Penna to talk about the modest and provident beginnings of Quest Nutrition. I had never heard this story before, and I don't think I live under a rock. And I thought there's probably a lot of people out there that don't know this either. And I really am interested in spreading this word. Then later in the show, we're going to be joined by Jacques Newell Taylor to talk about exploiting neuroscience to get what you want out of your body. And let's face it, we all want results. And, of course, I have to thank our title sponsor, All-American Pharmaceutical and EFX Sports. Right now, you get their 6 top-selling products absolutely free by going to superhumanradio.net and clicking the EFX Sports banner ad. And you will pay $5 and change for shipping, but that's legitimately the shipping charge. It's not a self-liquidating promotion like so many other scammy companies out there. And the reason that they do this is because Dr. Jeff believes that no one should buy anything until they've tried it, and he puts his money where his mouth is. So check that out. And without further delay, welcome to the show, Shannan, Yorton, Penna. How you doing, Shannan?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. I don't know why we didn't do this sooner, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Well, so I had an opportunity to spend some time with you and Ron this past week in Los Angeles. And you told me a story that I have never heard before. And frankly, I have a funny feeling that a lot of people have never heard it. And we're going to talk about the inception of Quest Nutrition. But before we talk about that, we have to lay the groundwork about your life as a competitor, and obviously the daughter of Chet Yorton. Anybody who's followed physical culture and bodybuilding in its golden era, we know who your dad is. Talk about how you got started, your love of physical. Did you immediately love physical culture, or was this something that you had to learn to love?
No, oh gosh. It feels like it's in my blood. Like, it comes so natural. And I would love to say that it came from my dad. I was raised a very specific way, nutrition-wise, growing up. We were very much a low-carb family, not because anyone said that. It just, my dad never really ate much carbohydrate. He wasn't a rice eater. He wasn't a potato eater, things like pasta. We never had that in the house. So I kind of naturally just grew up with typical fruits, vegetables, meats. I ate everything. I was a big eater since I was a little kid. So, but I always grew up with kind of that type of food. So when we went out to restaurants, I never thought to order a potato or rice as a side or things like that. So still to this day, those are just never foods I'm interested in. Sure, I love pizza and ice cream, and I eat that stuff on occasion, but I just didn't naturally grow up with that stuff. So I would say, though, that growing up with that led me to, Quest and all that stuff where we're at now.
What about training? Were you natural? Were you a natural athlete in high school and so on? Did you just love training?
I did, yeah. So, I didn't play sports as a kid. I'm an only child, so I was very much like the mama's girl. I wanted to be with my mom like 24/7. My parents worked a lot, so any chance I got to be with them, I wanted to be with them. They tried to get me into, ballet and jazz and karate, and I just cried. I didn't want to stay. So I actually didn't get involved in sports until high school. I did typical physical ed, PE in junior high. And then when I got into high school, I didn't want to have to take regular PE, at second period of the day, and then you go through school kind of the rest of the day sweaty and hot.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to take a sport because then it's end of day and I can go home. And so that was my lead-in into sports and sort of fitness that way. I didn't realize I was going to love it so much. So I joined the cross-country team because I thought, running's good for you. I can run and then go home. And I fell in love with cross-country. It became like a challenge for me. How far can you run? Things like that. And then obviously I joined the basketball team, or I tried out and I made it. And then I did track. So it kind of grew. Like I realized I love cross country and that challenge. And I thought, well, let me play basketball. Let me try these other sports that I kind of had an interest in. And I fell in love with it. So, there I am, ninth grade in high school, like loving sports, thinking back, like, God, why didn't I do this when I was younger? Parents tried, didn't want to. So it was natural for me. I fell in love with it right away. And as soon as I could, I wanted to go to the gym with my mom. So at about 13, 14, I started going to the health club with her. And, they don't let you in the gym without a parent.
Right.
You have to have somebody over a certain age. So when my mom would go and work out, I would go and kind of play with the little baby weights and take a step class or, whatever was available at the time. And I loved the movement. I loved the challenge. I loved sweating and feeling good after. So it was very much natural for me.
That's so cool. That really is cool. So now let's fast forward. So you became a competitive strength athlete. You competed in, was it figure that you competed?
Figure, yes.
Okay.
I did figure.
And so, and as such, you also were a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. And nutrition is 80% of what makes us look the way we look. Mm-hmm. And you had specific goals, but you also didn't want to lead a what's the word? A gastronomically monastic life. You like the way food. I mean, you're a foodie. You really are.
No, I'm a foodie, and anyone who's been maybe on my Instagram page or anything like that, that's probably predominantly what my page is food. So I'm posting either what I'm making or baking or what, my husband and I, when we go out and eat. I love food. I don't care if it's healthy food, if it's a steak and veggies, or if it's, a dessert.
Right.
I love it all. So, yeah, that's, I grew up with that. My mom was very much into food. My dad ate food for fuel and nutrition only. That he sure loves, a good meal, but he always just ate for fuel. And my mom was more of a, hey, let's bake cookies this weekend, let's make banana bread. And so I kind of got into the baking side of it more because of my mom. And who doesn't want dessert when they're dieting? Like, rarely do people say, hey, I want a good piece of meat when you're dieting. Most people say, I want dessert, I want a cake, I want ice cream. And so I think that's kind of really what led me there is I didn't compete until I was 30 when I did my first show. So it's not like I competed all through my 20s. I kind of found it much later. Obviously, figure didn't exist in the early 2000s. I think figure came, I don't know, maybe around 2004. I forget when figure came about. Before it was just fitness and bodybuilding. And so for me, it was, I was a personal trainer. I did people's nutrition. Obviously, I followed a specific plan myself. I got people ready for whether it was weddings, reunions, a marathon, whatever their goals were. So I had the ability to do that, and I kept saying to myself, God, I want to compete. And I just never really saw myself getting up on stage. I mean, honestly, I have horrible stage fright. I don't love being on stage in front of people. But I love the idea of the challenge. Like, it would get me up on stage and maybe get me over that fright or at least make me more comfortable. But, God, I loved competing. I competed in sports in high school, and I thought, I just want that challenge, the idea of bettering your body and getting up on stage and being judged for it. I love that idea. A lot of people hate that. They don't want to be looked at and judged and, being told, your abs aren't good enough, your legs aren't big enough, or whatever it is. And I really looked forward to that. So, honestly, I didn't compete until I met my husband, and he was really a great help in that. He would diet with me. So, I had a lot of support in that area. So I finally did compete when I was 30.
Okay, so, and at this point in time, you've got clients that you're training, and you're competing, and you're going, man, I miss some of those really, really good things. And that set you out to start hunting for nutritionally appropriate dessert type products that wouldn't cause you to derail your contest prep, for instance. Right.
So that, you go to the grocery store and you kind of look for things like, okay, this is, maybe dietetic enough, but then it doesn't taste great. Or, how can I figure this out? And I always started to look at things, if I ate a dessert out, how could I make that healthier at home? And not just healthier by removing some of the sugar, but like removing the flour entirely, removing, everything entirely. And that led me to like baking with protein powders. So it kind of just started there. Everyone's had a protein shake for the most part. I started baking with them. A lot of people have done that. That's not like a new thing. But I started playing with different ingredients with the protein powder and seeing what I could make out of it. You start with making a protein pudding, and I started making brownies. So I was doing that before my husband and I were even married.
Okay.
So I was making brownies and doing all that. That's what kind of led me to making the bars, and there's kind of a little story before that. But, it's looking at ingredients, and I really was always a label reader and a label looker and trying to figure out what could I substitute those exact ingredients for.
Well, but now you and the little story that you intimated just now before that was you actually found a product that was kind of a pre-made mix that you would bake on your own, and you bought it, and you were like, this rocks, this tastes so good.
Right.
But you couldn't. It was kind of like that Seinfeld episode where they're all eating the yogurt and getting fat, and they can't believe that there's no sugar in it.
Right. So I found this product online and ordered it, and I started making it. I thought, it's so easy. It's a pre-made mix. All you basically do is add your nut butter to it. And I thought, fantastic. I'm going to do this. This will be a fun snack treat, whatever. So my husband and I are eating these for probably months, and we weren't necessarily getting fatter on them, but we kept wondering, why do these taste so good? I mean, I love peanut butter and I love almond butter, but that doesn't make something inherently sweet, and it doesn't, give us the taste we were getting from it. It was just like a vanilla powder. So I thought, there's got to be something in this. And my husband, being who he is, he was like, let's get this tested. So we did, and it didn't come back with as low carb as they claimed. So we were like, oh my God, we've been eating carbs, like a huge amount of carbs all this time. And that's when we were kind of, wow, people can lie on their labels and get away with it and whatnot. So that kind of that's really the thing that led me to making my own. I was like, screw this, I'm making it myself, I know what's in it. So I started trying to work on protein bars, and that was, I guess you would call the inception of Quest, even though I didn't know Quest was ever, coming around the corner. But so I started playing with things, ingredients, adding things in, pulling out nut butters to not have it be maybe as high fat, and just kind of goofing around with products. I spent a lot of time online researching, what could I put in here? I need some type of a liquid. I need, most everything, if you looked up protein bars online, especially back then, how to make them yourself, everything was with oats or, mashed banana or some type of, sweet potato. You'd find all sorts of interesting, and I was trying to get the carbs out.
Right.
That was my goal because I was a low-carb dieter. So, that was really the start of what became the Quest bar.
Well, but I want to point something out here. Mm-hmm. Two things I really want to point out. First of all, for those of you out there listening to this inspiring interview, no, really, I tell you why. Because it's quite often, we're always told, do what you love and the money will come. And the reality is, you were doing what you loved. You love to bake, you love to cook, you love to train, you love to compete, and you were doing what you loved. And it wasn't like anybody set out to, we're gonna cure type 2 diabetes. We're gonna come out with magical food. No,
right.
This was just you being Shannan Yorton Penna. That's all it was. There was no ulterior motive. And the reason I point that out is that everybody in this audience is doing something right now that they're not looking at like, wow, this could be something I could quit working and start doing. But listen to the way the story unfolds. That's all I want to point out.
And it is totally possible. I mean, people are out there making things, whether it's food or jewelry or whatever people are doing. It is possible to turn it into business. I never had that.
And that's the other thing I want to point out. You never had any desire to have a big company or nothing like that.
No. I never wanted to. Even when my husband eventually did bring that up, I was kind of like, are you crazy? What am I going to do? Sell these door to door? I'm not a business person. I don't have the mind that goes that direction. I'm really a person who's good with the day in, day out. I loved my personal training job. I was happy just doing that. That would have been fine for me, honestly, for the rest of my life. I'm good with what I love. I don't need, I've never been someone who needed more. I need to turn this business into I need to have my own gym. And, that's not how my brain really sees things or works. But
that is so refreshing to hear. No. I'm going to tell you why. Because most of us feel guilty because the message that we're getting is grind harder,
right.
Wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and get started on your day. You're lazy if you're sleeping. And you're like, no, I'm content with my life. I really am.
Yeah. Well, and that's great. I never thought I wouldn't have, a job. I don't physically work hard or work at all some days. Like where I'm at now with Quest, I don't have to do that. And that's a really cool thing because now I can spend my time with my dogs and hiking and doing other things I enjoy. And
Right.
I'm good with that. A lot of people, my husband's sister always used to ask me, like, well, what are you going to do with your life now? And it's like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm totally good. I'm really happy. I love it. Maybe there'll be something different I want to get involved in, whether it's volunteering or another business or who knows what. But I love where I'm at, and I loved where I was at when I was personal training. And I've always been very honest that way, not just to the outside world, but to myself.
Right.
I'm really happy just hanging. I'm good with that.
You're content with the simple things in life, and that's a blessing, by the way, just for the record. That's a blessing.
That's what my husband says.
Yeah, it is.
I think it came from being an only child. I mean, I know there's a lot of only children out there.
I don't know
maybe...
about that, Shannan, because I know a lot of only children that are really miserable. You're not a miserable.
Well,
you're really one of the sweetest people I've ever met, and genuinely. But anyway, okay. So now I want to move forward. So now. Okay. You're making these bars. You figured things out. They really taste good. You're selling them to your clients.
So
Ron is bringing them to work. Go ahead.
I was just making the bars for myself, and then, obviously Ron was always my taste tester. He would come home from work, and he had a software company at the time, so he'd come home from work, and he'd dig in, and he'd be like, oh, these are really good, or this isn't sweet enough, and he would help me taste test and work on them, and I was just doing it for us. And I used to send him to work. I'd wrap him up in little cellophane or whatever and send him to work so he didn't have to eat another turkey burger that I made, because that's pretty much what we lived on, was like turkey burgers, chicken breast, and vegetables and egg whites, the typical bodybuilding kind of diet. So I would send him to work with those because I knew exactly how much protein was in and all that, carbs, fat, whatever. And one day one of his business partners, Mike, who's our business partner at Quest, I think Ron gave him a bite, or Mike said, what are you eating? And Ron said, here you go, try it. He's like, wow, those are really good. He's like, yeah, Shannon's been making these. And it kind of spiraled. Ron came home and told me, like, yeah, Mike really liked them. And I thought, well, I'll make some extra and you can give them to whoever wants them at work.
Right.
So I started making bigger batches of my bars and sending Ron to work with them. And the tech guys were, who live on like Skittles and pizza and whatever at work, were like, oh, these are really good. What are these things? And Ron's like, well, Shannon's protein bars. And, they were like, oh, could we get more? Like, would she want to make them for us? So when regular people, and I mean regular in the nicest way, just regular people who eat whatever they want.
Right.
When they liked them, which I thought, oh, my God, they really want to eat this stuff. It's diet food. They're going to hate this. Like, I thought I liked it because I'm always on a diet.
Right.
But they genuinely, wanted more. And I thought, wow. And so it gave me an opportunity to work on more flavors and things like that. And they all became my test subjects. So that's where this spiraled. And after enough months of that, Ron kind of came home and he's like, we're going to do something with this. We're going to turn this into a business. And I thought, are you crazy?
No.
I really thought he was kind of nuts. And I was like, what do you mean? You do software and now you're like, you want to make protein bars? Like, how are we going to do this?
But
I don't have that brain, like I said earlier. Like, I'm going to make these by hand at home, and we're going to, go door to door? And he's like, no, you sell them online. Like, we'll do a website. And I was like, I don't even understand how this works. And small backtrack is I got, my first cell phone when I was 29 and dating my husband. Like, I'm not a tech person in the slightest.
Right.
So for me, I was like, website online, like I just couldn't even grasp it.
Well, I want to take a break. I want to interrupt you. I want to take a break because I want to when we come back, I want to talk about, you used the term spiral. This ended up being I want to tell the story about how the people at the post office got to know you, because the story really gets good. This is very, very inspiring. Anybody out there who feels like your life is lacking some sort of goals or initiative. Sometimes things just happen. And as they are happening, you get swept away. And that's the next part of the story. Stay tuned. You're listening to Superhuman Radio. We're talking to Shannan Yorton Penna, the gal who gave birth to Quest Nutrition. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. We're talking with Shannan Yorton Penna about how Quest Nutrition became the company that it is today. And it really all started with her desire to have things that she could eat that she would enjoy. And lo and behold, people who didn't care about their weight, weren't competing, they loved them too, and that's where the magic is. So, Shannan, let's pick up with the quote-unquote spiral. So you find yourself making these bars. You literally couldn't even make them all in your kitchen at one point in time, right?
Well, right. So at the time when I was giving them to my husband to take to work and stuff, I was also selling them at my boot camp. So I used to run a boot camp in my backyard, and it was more just for fun. Our business partner, as I mentioned before, Mike, his wife used to come, and all her mom friends, and so I had these like pretty much weekly, 3 times a week, 12 ladies, and a lot of them were eating other protein bars that were out there. And, they would complain about their weight and this, that, the other, and I would sort of start to educate them about, what's in those bars and why you don't want to eat those, and the amount of sugar or the soy protein or whatever it is that I believed was not optimal. And so, I was telling them, look, I make a bar. I'm happy to make you extra. I'd have to charge you, like a typical food service or whatever. So, I was making it for them as well, and they would buy them weekly. I would make them on the weekends and give them to them Monday morning, so they would have their batch of bars for the week, and that's kind of how that went. Once that was doing, really well, like I mentioned before, my husband said, okay, we got to do something with this. And he got his, ideas together. He pitched it to, our other business partners. And they also kind of thought he was crazy. Ron's really the genius behind, Quest. I make the products, right. But, Ron really has the business mind. He's a true entrepreneur. He's been doing different businesses since he was, 18, 19 years old. He's had, he had a Subway, he's had restaurants, he's, done all sorts of stuff. Right. So it's really, was his concept of like what we were going to do, how we were going to do this with the least amount of risk. I mean, he had it all kind of planned out. And so it was just who wanted to be on board with us at the time. And all this time I'm still thinking, this is crazy. I can't believe we're taking my food and going public with this. Like, I don't believe people want to eat this. That's how I was feeling.
That's so funny.
And so, I'm kind of, I don't know, almost begrudgingly doing this. Like, he really wants to do this. Like, okay, I'll do this with him type of thing. And, we started renting time at a commissary. So you rent, blocks of time, like 4 hours, 6 hours. And you go to these, they're like kitchens. And we, I had to get a food license, so I went through the online training to get a managerial food license so that somebody has to be certified in that before you can make food and sell it to the public. So did that, got that certification. Like, we did all the little things we had to do to work in a commissary, and we started making them. We would do, started as one night a week. After everybody left work, we would go to the commissary, and we'd work till 10, 11 o'clock at night making bars. And by hand, I knew how the mix went because it was my formula, and so I would put that together. Everybody had their little station of what they would do. Some people are putting the bars in packages, and some people are heat sealing them. So, that was kind of our crew of, I think 5 or 6 people. We even had my dad come for a while. We needed extra hands.
Wow.
So we would, Ron had the whole system online and doing that thing, and we were giving out 2 free bars to anybody who filled out the form. And so when we started, we were just giving away product. We weren't selling anything. And the reorders, if you will, would start coming in where people wanted to now purchase them. And when that started happening, it started happening really fast. And to the point where our business partner, Mike, had me set up at home with, a printer and everything so that the orders, when they would come in, I would just print them. I would, package them and get them ready, and then go to the post office. And that's what you were talking about.
So because you were the shipping department, you were the chef, you were all.
I made the bars. Yeah, in the early days. I mean, when it was small enough, I made the bars. I did the sales online, if you will, even too. Meaning that we had a website and kind of advertising in that sense going out. I was a feature blogger on Body Space at the time, and don't know actually how that even happened. I was just posting very regularly, and eventually I got put up there as a feature blogger. So I started talking about the Quest bars and things like that, and I was new to Facebook at the time, so I started to the girls I was competing with, and I would write them and say, hey, can I send you bars? If you love them, great. Maybe you want to, talk about them. And if not, then no harm, no foul. You got some free bars.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, I would love to, for sure. Send them my way. And lo and behold, people started talking about them. One of the first girls was a friend of mine, Gina Aliotti, who I didn't know other than from competing. And Gina's a great girl. She was like, oh, my God, I love these. These are amazing. They're clean. And she started giving them out to her, her clients, her nutrition clients that she did their nutrition for, and her competitors and all that kind of stuff. So Gina was one of the first people I worked with, and we call them influencers now at Quest. And there, it kind of just like grew like that. So more of those people started talking about it. The trickle-down effect kind of got towards, the regular everyday person, and more orders were coming in. So I was then doing all the shipping, and it was kind of getting a little crazy. Like I couldn't handle it every day. And that's how quick things started to happen. I would go to the post office with my buckets and buckets of, bars packaged up in boxes, and standing in line, the lady would always say to me, nope, you got to get in line. And after she would start to see me every single day, she was kind of like, what is it you're doing here? So I told the business, like, who has that much stuff to ship every day? Like,
right.
This stuff had to go out. And so it was all prepaid stamps. We did all our stamps online. So everything, I didn't really technically have to stand in line, but she eventually would look at me and say, okay, over here, like dump them over here, and she would just let them go. So I was, kind to her for letting me do that and not have to stand in line and go back and forth to my car so much. So, I would give her bars for free, or I eventually bought her a gift certificate to the shoe store that was right across the way.
Oh, how cool.
I would do things to, like, thank her for the fact that she would let me cut line and drop off all my stuff because, you know what a post office can be like.
Oh, my God, you could be there. You could be there for a couple hours if you're not careful. Right.
So, yeah, so that was the start of that spiral. I'd call it spiral up, obviously, but it kept going from there, and it just nothing slowed down. It just the more orders kept coming in, and obviously we started doing the expos then. So we did our first the LA Fit Expo was our very first expo. And we sat there with a little 10 by 10 booth with a little small table and two little laptops, begging people to try our bars. Nobody wanted to eat another protein bar. They'd walk by our booth and oh no, those things give me stomach aches, or
right.
Oh God, I can't handle another protein bar, because also you're at an expo with 50 other companies that have protein bars. And, in the early days, that's what people would say to us is like, really? You're getting in the protein bar business? Like, you're going to lose your ass. And nobody wanted, everyone was trying to warn us.
Well, because everybody thought your bar was going to be like everybody else's bar.
Right,
but the reality
right.
is that the Quest bar influenced everybody else's bar, because once the Quest bar hit the market and was so wildly successful, everybody was copying the bar exactly.
Yeah. Everybody copied us. Well, we blew up so fast. I mean, and everybody thought, well, then we have to do what they're doing. So they just copied us, or tried to. A lot of those bars either didn't taste as good, or they also still had a lot of other ingredients.
Right.
People still put, glycerin or other sugar, or they put real chocolate chips that had regular, sugar in it. We made our own. So I made, the chocolate chips for our, chocolate chip cookie dough bar, the white chocolate chips for the white chocolate raspberry. Those are homemade, recipes that I made without sugar that we ended up putting into the bars.
Right.
Anybody else who had chocolate chips in it were just using regular sugared chocolate chips. So we were really doing something that was different. And I was still shocked by it all. And still to this day, I go into stores and I take pictures of me standing next to the Quest bars. 8 years into it, as a company, I'm still semi-shocked by it all. I mean, I get how the business side of it can work, how you get things out there, but I never planned on this. I never meant for it. I didn't even want to do it, and this is what it became. So it's all, pretty shocking.
It is, and obviously you're right, Ron. It was actually the perfect marriage of creativity and business sense.
Right, and that's what I am. I'm an intuitive cook or baker or whatever. I love being creative and playing. I never like following recipes, so it's actually like I have a ton of cookbooks, but I'm always morphing on it. Like I don't really love following a basic recipe. So, my husband with his business mind and my creativity side or my just playing side with food is kind of what made this. So
yeah, no, it's really amazing, and but the reality is that you're not done. So Quest is up. You still have influence on what goes on at Quest, but you've gone off in another direction. You're creating again, and I got to taste some of the new nut butters, and I want to take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, I want to talk about the fact that while you downplay, like, well, I like hanging out with the dogs, you're still at it. You're still doing this.
It's funny. It's not really downplaying. It's genuinely who I am. Like, that is the life I like to live. I love what we did at Quest and stuff, but I am not a corporate girl. I'm not a business girl. It's not what I would want to do for the rest of my life. And most people look at me and go, how do you not want to be a part of Quest, like, forever? And as long as we have Quest, we have Quest. But I just mean, it's just not, business is not my thing. So I love being in the kitchen. I love being with my dogs. That's what I want to do. So, like you said, when we come back from break, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about what you're up to now. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. Later in the show, we're going to be talking about how to use neuroscience to get the most out of your body, whether that's fat loss, building muscle, being healthier. Right now, we're talking with Shannan, Yorton, Penna. We were talking about how Quest got started. If you missed that, you have to tune into the podcast later. But now we're going to go on and say that Shannan is still creating, aren't you? You're still doing things. Some other brands, right?
Well, I'm always making something. I mean, I never stop, kind of making products and stuff. I don't obviously do as much for Quest anymore. We've got a whole R&D team that Ron built over the years, and, they're pumping out the chips and the cookies and the pizza and all the amazing things. I can't take any credit for those. But, about a year ago or so, we started, Ron and I, and our business partner, Michael, I should call him, Michael Venny. We started another company kind of with nut butters and things I always wanted to do and things I make at home. So I'm always making my own nut butters and goodies like that. So it's called Legendary Foods, and we have seasoned nuts as well as flavored nut butters that don't have protein in it. So with that was kind of the thing that got really big for a while, was all these protein nut butters. And I just couldn't stand sort of the thickness and the pastiness, because once you add protein to all the nut butters, they get super gummy and just too thick. And so it was not something I ever really enjoyed. Also, again, a lot of those had a lot of sugar in them. So it was kind of like, well, I'm going to buy peanut butter, or nut butter, almond butter, whatever, that's technically healthy and could be on a diet or whatever, but now it's got all this added sugar in it, whether it's chocolate chips or toffee bits or marshmallow goo, and I just thought, forget it, I just got to stick with my own. So, I started making my own, and again, this has been for years I've been making those types of things. And when, Michael, our partner, wanted to do something, he wanted to go into the nut realm, like something like, Blue Diamond or whatever, and make actual seasoned nuts that were healthy, that didn't have sugar and maltodextrin and all that kind of stuff. And so we started working on those things, and I said, well, if we're going to be in the nut business, like, why don't we do my nut butters? And he wasn't privy to the nut butter world. He was like, why? Is that a big thing? And I was like, flavored nut butter? It's like, yeah, it's pretty big, but,
yeah.
It's also fun and it's dessert-like, but it's clean. And, and he was like, I guess. So I made a bunch for him. He taste tested, and he was like, wow, these are really good. And he brought them home to his girlfriend and her kid, and they ate them. And so it became a thing where he was like, okay, let's do it. So we started working on that, and we launched, Legendary Foods, like I said, about a year ago or so.
What a great name, too, for a food company, Legendary Foods.
Right along the line of Quest. You got to stay with those good names.
Yeah, and the reality is that nut butters are probably a bigger segment than the spiced or flavored nuts themselves, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. Honestly, our sales and what we're finding, like at expos and things like that, people are loving the nuts. They're really, they love the nut butters too, but nut butters for some people, they can't stop. I think you've said you've eaten a whole jar.
I ate, so when I got samples sent to me, and I always appreciate the things that being affiliated with your companies is always, I always come home and find packages of stuff, and it's so exciting. And I got the apple. What is it?
There's apple pie, pecan pie. Then we have the blueberry cinnamon bun. We have peanut butter chocolate chip, and then we have like peanut butter cup.
I think I opened the apple pie nut butter up like at a 5 o'clock on, let's say, a Wednesday afternoon when I came home from work, and I found it, and it was gone by 5 o'clock the following day.
So, it depends. If you're a hungry person or you're just not good with portion control,
I'm just an Italian, I would be called a gavone.
Gavone.
Okay. I just don't. Poor Elisa, she gets mad at me because I eat everything before she has a chance to even taste it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, there's people like that, and nothing wrong with it. But, there's those people who say, I better stick with the nuts because I can't control myself with the nut butter. But at least that says it's that good, right?
But the reality is that I ate 3 bags of the bacon cheddar cheese almonds the other day.
Yeah, those are my favorite too.
In seconds, like they were gone, and I thought to myself, I better stop.
Yeah,
because that's a lot. It's a lot more than I think it is. You know what I mean?
Right. But oddly, somehow, even though nuts and nut butter are basically the same thing, people feel safer and better with the nuts than they do with nut butter. Even though you can eat just as many nuts, but it's that thing that people are a little more controlled with some of the savory things than they are with the sweet things. So I think it's a little bit of that. Some people would say, no, I'm not even a sweet person and I eat, only savory things. But, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But they both do, sometimes equally as well. Sometimes you'll see the nuts are doing much better than but it's either way, it's been a smashing success once again. So it's been really another exciting adventure, I guess, for me. I never expected to do Quest, and here I am doing another business, and I never thought that would happen. So.
Right, and again, it's all born of something you love, and that is being in the kitchen and creating something that you and your mom enjoyed together, something that's really in your DNA to do. So it's not like as though you're not somebody who's doing something you hate just because you want to be successul. Right. And as you pointed out, you didn't even care about the success. It was just what you love to do.
Right. No, I mean, I definitely never expected to have, one of the biggest businesses out there. That's probably more the shocking part. Like, sure, we can all turn things into businesses, and they may not go anywhere. They may just pay your bills. And that's all I expected. I thought maybe if we're going to do this, it's going to pay our bills. Like, I just never thought it would be as gangbusters as it is.
And in fact, you texted Ron when you came up with the name Quest, and you even had a tagline for it. That's I got to say something, and I know that Ron is going to cringe right now, but that's the true sign of a Gemini. Like we just stuff just comes in our brains. We just create stuff out of nowhere, and people go, "Wow, that's so great."
I love it. That's so funny. Yeah, I was coming home from visiting my parents, actually. They live in the valley, and I was driving home, and I stopped at a red light, and there was this big billboard, as you see, on every corner. And it was, I don't remember if it was like for Powerade or Diet Coke or whatever it was, but it was a guy on a bicycle, and there was, mountains in the distance. And I was thinking, like, how's that a Diet Coke or a Powerade, other than I guess it's like to fuel you? And automatically popped in my head, fuel your journey. And I was like, Quest. And it just came to me thinking, what else is a journey? It's a quest. And so I was like, Quest Nutrition, Quest Bar. Oh my God. And I text Ron right in the car, literally like, I think this is the name, because for months, mind you, the group of us had been emailing back and forth, like keeping a running list of all the names we had going. And our name that was at the top of the list at the time was Health Factory. And so, like,
that would have been that would have sucked so much compared to Quest. It really would have,
Yeah, that was almost what it was called. And I just, whether it's my brain or that billboard or whatever you want to, give the thanks to, that's how the name kind of came to be. And Ron loved the name, and so the next day I met everybody before they headed off to work. We met outside of Kookaroo, when those still existed, and it's probably only an LA thing, but it's a chicken place out here, so we met out front of that, and I literally had to pitch the guys because I worked with a bunch of guys, so it was me and all these guys. So I pitched them on this name, and I was like, Quest Nutrition, fuel your journey, whatever, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, a secretary, like everybody needs to fuel their journey for the day. And so it was like this little silly pitch, but they were like, that's actually a really great name. And so we kind of molded over for some days or a week or whatever it was, and we had to settle on something, and everyone liked that the best. So we went with it, and that was that.
I know the whole journey has been a surprise to you.
Oh God, yeah.
But
still is.
It really is. I think anybody who hears this story would agree that this was just the perfect marriage of creativity, opportunity, timing. And this is what can happen when everything lines up. I want to take our last commercial break, and then I want to get back to you personally and talk about where you see yourself in the future and kind of get a feel for what you hope to happen. We're talking with Shannan Yorton Penna. She literally gave birth to Quest Nutrition. That can be undeniable from this story today. I never heard it before. Maybe you've heard it, but it was new to me, and I hope you're enjoying it. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Shannan, what's your favorite Quest product?
Right now it's the chocolate chip cookie. I eat at least one a day, sometimes two. But yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with those.
I am too.
Yeah, that and the peanut butter, but the chocolate chip cookie one is just, that's been my favorite.
You know what? So. Elisa bought real chocolate chip cookies the other day.
Uh-huh.
And they were supposed to be gluten-free. I think they were made with like tapioca flour, but each one had 5 grams of sugar, and they were little cookies.
Right.
Like maybe an inch and a half around.
Right.
And I tasted one, and I said, I spit it out. I said, I don't even want to waste my calories. And I grabbed the Quest. You know what? I eat 2 pounds of beef a day.
Right.
In 1 pound allotments. And after each pound, I eat one Quest cookie, the chocolate chip. And my logic is twofold. Number one, I love the way they taste. And number two, I got a little fiber with all this meat I'm eating. And so I feel like as though I'm doing something good. I'm with you. That is the game changer, that cookie.
I just love it when I want something a little sweet, or I'm a little hungry but like don't want a big old meal, or just don't feel like cooking. Like I just go to the cookie. That's just kind of been my thing. Though last night I had a bag of chips, so of the Quest chips, the new tortillas.
The tortilla chips are amazing,
yeah,
and I like the tortilla chips because they don't have a lot of fiber too. By the way.
For you and stuff. Yeah, so it's like it just depends on like a mood thing. Like I wanted something more on the savory side, so I went for that. But yeah, I would say daily I eat at least one of those chocolate chip cookies. So
talk about your 2 girls for a second.
My 2 girls, my 2 doggy girls. Yes, those are my fur children. I love them. My girls are one's almost 10, my oldest, and then the other one's 7. And they're my life. For those of you out there who don't have human children, your dogs typically are everything. And I love it. I love being outside with them. I love hiking with them. I love just being with them. They're the best. They're the cuddliest, most lovable dogs.
So I got to stay with you over the weekend, and Saturday night you and Ron had an event to go to. And
yes.
I got to sit with the girls.
Yes.
And we were watching TV together, watching a movie together. And I was sitting there, and they were, everybody's happy. I'm like, oh, I'm doing a good job. I'm pet sitting. And then all of a sudden, I hear this howling.
Yeah.
And I look over, and I want to, and so Maui was sitting next to me.
Right.
And why did I just forget? I just blanked out.
Fiji.
Thank you. The island. Yeah. Fiji is missing, and I'm like, so I look at Maui, and I'm like, where's your sister? And I hear this howling, and it's this sorrowful howl. And I realized that she was crying for you.
Yeah.
And so I interrupted the movie, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go upstairs and sit with the and then she was more relaxed. It was kind of like it was because I wasn't really paying attention. I was watching the movie, and she realized, oh my God, Mom's not here. What am I going to do?
Yeah, Fiji's one of those. So, Maui is super cuddly. She just wants to lay next to you, on you, whatever. She's good with people. Fiji is like she loves Mom and Dad. She's not great with new people. She's a little timid. So this is one of the things she wants. She wants to either be covered with a blanket or she wants to go to her space on the couch. So she has her, spot.
Right.
And so because you were in, the movie room, she may have been like, okay, you didn't cover me. You're not my mom and dad, so, I think I need to go back into the house, So she's funny that way. She's not great with new people. Our housekeeper even says the same thing. When I leave, sometimes she finds her, howling at the door because I left. So, yeah, she's funny that way.
Both of them are Hungarian Vizslas. When did you get your first Vizsla?
Well, I got them both here in California. There's some, they're purebreds, so you typically get that dog from a breeder.
Right.
I looked for ones in Los Angeles just because I didn't want to have a puppy shipped. I don't know. I've never been comfortable with the shipping of dogs, and it has to be done sometimes. I just didn't want to do that, and so I found one in Ramona, California, and then Fallbrook, California, which is kind of like Temecula area up that way.
Right.
So yeah, I found they're from different breeders, each of my dogs. So yeah, up there and.
Had you known about the Vizsla before that? Did you say, I really want a Vizsla?
So here's a funny story. I didn't have a dog since I was 18. I grew up with a dog, and she passed at 18 from cancer, actually. And so I hadn't had another dog, and so finally, here I am at 31 in a house with a yard, and I was finally out of an apartment, and I thought, I want a dog. I've been wanting a dog my whole life. So I used to watch, even without any pets of my own, I used to watch Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer. And why did I watch it? I was very interested in dog training, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And so I saw this dog. His name was Booker. I remember the show very well. It was about this Hungarian Vizsla named Booker, and he was terrified of everything. And they went from living in the country to the city. Anyway, long story short, I fell in love with the look of that dog. So it was definitely a visual thing. But also they're known as the Velcro dog because they just want to be stuck to you. They are a people dog 100% of the day. Right. They just want to be with you. And I was like, oh my God, the dog can run with me and, they hike with me and do all this stuff that I love to do but used to do by myself. So I started checking out Vizslas and looking into the breed, and I was like, this is it. This is the dog for me. So we got my first one, Maui, and when she was 2.5, we got her sister, Fiji, because I just felt like I love this breed so much. This is the dog I want. So
I fell in love with the breed, too, when I was in my late teens, and it's the most wonderful dog you can ever buy, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, they're really loving. Again, their nickname is known as the Velcro dog. They just are a people dog. So if you don't want a dog who wants to love on you and be next to you and kiss you and stuff, don't get this dog, because that's what they do.
Get a cat instead. Listen,
get a cat. Get a dog that's more aloof. There's a lot of dogs I love breed wise, like the look and everything. Like there's a dog called a Borzoi, but they're much more aloof. So not cuddly, and I want a dog on me.
Thank you so much for taking time this morning to come on and tell the story. I'm so glad that you told the story, because I don't think a lot of people know how Quest got started, and now that people know it, it's even a more amazing story.
Oh, thank you.
And you have a wonderful day, and tell the girls Uncle Carl said hello.
You got it, for sure. Will do. Thank you, Carl.
Talk to you later. We're going to take one quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how to harness neuroscience to be a better human. Stay tuned. When it comes to your body, really, all of your abilities come from your brain. We've done shows over the past 13 years that show that fatigue actually starts in the brain. And also your belief system, your willingness to work hard, it all comes from your brain. But yet all we think about when we think about our body is the body. We forget that the brain plays a huge role in the success of what we want to do with our body. And there are people out there who are not ignoring this. They are paying attention to it. My next guest is Jacques Newell Taylor. How you doing, Jacques?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thanks for being here. And
it's my pleasure.
This is an area that you are really working hard to spread the good information that if we understand neuroscience, we can actually get more out of our body, right?
Correct. Yes, it's when I think about it, I call it a neuro-logic approach. In other words, typically when we're thinking about exercise, we focus on the adaptations that we want to stimulate in the muscles or in the cardiovascular system, or we might even consider what's happening with the joints. But rarely do we think about the changes that are happening in the brain and things that we can affect in our brain, affect in our behavior, and how our attitudes towards exercise might actually impact the way our bodies shift. So, yeah, this has been a really interesting journey trying to make neuroscience relevant to exercise.
So where did it start for you? Give me the beginning for you.
Okay. Let's see. It started when I guess I was 14 years old, and it was one of my first jobs. I was working in a neuroscience laboratory, and we were looking at something called long-term potentiation, which is one of the mechanisms that they think is responsible for memory, how neurons communicate and remember information. And it was at that time that I realized that there was something about, or I learned there was something about activity that seemed to be linked to this long-term potentiation. So that was the beginning of this fascination of mine between this link between neuroscience and motion. And then as I went through school and I went to college where I studied neuroscience, and then I got out in the world and I kept reading and studying, and I came across the work of Michael Merzenich. And he is a very well-known neuroscience scientist, and he's done some seminal research that helps us to really appreciate that when you are training your body, you are training your mind, whether you know it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you're strategically doing it that way or not. You can't separate the two. So that's that continuum from back when I was a teenager to now has really been strong, and it's been fostered by a lot of wonderful research, some really great guys, men and women out there.
Well, I mean, and this is supported just by the evidence of neuroplasticity, right? We see Parkinson's disease patients learning to do some, for them, challenging resistance movements, especially when you're training the legs. And we see neuronal sprouting happening in the substantia nigra. So it's kind of like we talk about priming a pump, right? You got to pour a little water in the pump to get the gasket wet, and then it can suck more water up. We're seeing this in applications in healthcare too now.
Yes, without a doubt. It's really quite exciting. There are things that in the medical field they would say if somebody has a stroke or Parkinson's, many diseases where people kind of threw up their hands and said there's nothing to do. But what we didn't realize was that times when we're applying an exercise or a stimulus, we look at it for 12 weeks when it really takes 36, right? So sometimes you cut off the study before you can even realize that there are any benefits. The other thing I think is really fascinating about this is for most of us who are really trying to just get the benefits of exercise in our daily lives, there are some things that we need to know about the hormones that muscles can produce in exercise that therefore can then stimulate changes in the brain. I mean, it's really fascinating stuff. And I think that if people understand more about these hormones and the conditions that allow these hormones to be produced, then we'll all get more out of exercise.
But also, okay, so we're still talking about the muscles being the actuator in this process of the brain. Is there a way to stimulate the brain? Because I know I have a company that sent me a gadget. I haven't tried it yet. It looks like headphones.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, and theoretically, if you put this thing on and wear it for a period of time, I'm not sure if you have to wear it while the action or before, but it's supposed to help hardwire certain movements that you're trying to learn. So is there ways to activate the brain to trigger the muscle changes? Well,
that device that you're talking about, I'm very familiar with. It does give you a bit of a head start, I'll say, in terms of motor pattern recruitment.
Okay.
But what's interesting is even though you have this stimulus, this electric stimulus that's stimulating your motor cortex, and it's supposed to be priming your nervous system, that does have its advantages for specific goals. But there might be goals where that's not actually advantageous, where you want the natural ramp up of activity as part of your exercise session.
Well, give me an example why that would be.
Okay. Let's say you are an endurance athlete. Well, what you want is you want to be able to train the full spectrum of motor unit recruitment patterns and not have any patterns kind of leapfrogged because of this priming stimulus, right?
Interesting.
You may...
Jacques, can you hear me? Because I think we just lost you. I don't know if you're on a cell phone, but I need you to move if you are. Okay, so now I can hear you. Now I can hear you. I'm sorry. You dropped out there for a moment. Sure.
Okay, I'm sitting in one place. I'm not moving anywhere. That's weird.
Okay.
Okay. So where did you lose?
Well, you were saying suppose you don't want that movement pattern to kind of leapfrog.
Yes. So another scenario might be in a rehab scenario. Rehab scenario, because here's what we typically forget about. Around our joints, we have these receptors that give information to the nervous system about what it can and cannot do at that joint.
Okay. Because you're getting feedback from the Golgi apparatus, and that's what proprioception is all about, right?
Well, from the Golgi apparatus, from nociceptors, from mechanoreceptors, from muscle spindle organs, we've got all kinds of receptors from receptors in the skin. All these receptors are giving your nervous system feedback about, hey, can I really give maximum output at that joint? Is everything okay down there? So if we have something that is sitting on top of our heads that is in some ways obliterating some of that feedback, overriding some of that feedback, that may not always work out so well, right? That might cause something called neurogenic inflammation. In other words, inflammation that is started by signaling from the nervous system, So that's a great tool. Nothing wrong with it, but like any other tool, it has to be applied under the appropriate circumstances.
Okay. So now let's talk about individuality here, right? So we hear a lot of people talking about, we create individual programs for people and all that sort of stuff, but can you really create individuality if you haven't assessed from a neurological standpoint where this person is?
That is such a great question. And I would have to agree with you. And that is why I'm such a fan of talking about this neurologic approach. It's not that this is any better than any other approach, but it's the missing piece. For example, you have somebody who's coming to you, and they will often say, look, I'm coming to work out because I've got to change my blood chemistry. My cholesterol is too high. My blood pressure is high. I'm stressed out, and I'm fat. I got to do something about this. So then we take them to work out, and what do? We are telling them, push harder, come on, you got to do more.
Increase your stress.
That's right. It becomes a stressful thing. But the person leaves going, man, my trainer kicked my butt. We had this boot camp. Boy, am I beat. And then 2 months later, you check your blood glucose, your cholesterol, and nothing has changed. And then they got to put you on medicine. And partly it's because we didn't really listen to that goal of I need to reduce my stress. So if we know that, then what we have to do is we have to figure out how do we design an exercise for this individual where they work hard, but it doesn't create a stressful scenario. What are the things we need to talk to about our clients? For example, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of people when they're doing, say, let's just take an exercise, not that everybody should do this exercise, but let's take an exercise like a squat. And you're doing a squat with what looks like really good form. But as you're doing this squat, your trainer's saying, do you feel that in your legs? And you're going, yeah, but I really, really feel it in my back.
Right.
And you say, okay, so you do a couple of things. So you make it a little bit better for your back. And now you're feeling it in your legs. And you're feeling that burning sensation, that tightening sensation.
Wow, I think you just dropped. Oh, there you go. You said you feel that burning sensation, that tightening sensation, and then you dropped out.
Yes. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
And they are unaccustomed to that feedback from their bodies, so they interpret that as something stressful and something to be afraid of.
Right.
So we have to talk them through that. That sensation that you're feeling in your quad and in your glute, that's your body giving you some feedback about those muscles working hard. That's great. That's exactly what we need. Then the stress levels start to come down. They can continue to work harder. Right?
So there was a study we've talked about on the show tangentially. I didn't actually have the author of this particular study on the show, but I've mentioned it enough over the past several years, where they took women, and these were postmenopausal women, who we know that when women go through menopause, their ability to manage stress diminishes because estradiol actually blunts adrenal response. So they tend to have. These are the women that say, I used to be able to handle stress so well. Now everything gets me all frazzled. So what they did was they had two groups of women. One group of women, they both had to lose weight. They both were given specific diets where they would be at maintenance levels of calories. But one group was given like really simple, like light cardio and, walking around. And the other group was given cardio and resistance training that they perceived to be arduous and difficult. The group that was training harder stalled on any fat loss. The group that was training less, they were actually burning less calories, expending less energy. They burnt more body fat. And when they looked at cortisol levels and they looked at stress hormones, what they deduced from the study was that your body perceives stress as stress. It doesn't know, oh, you're doing this to me on purpose. And when the body is in a high-stress environment, it assumes that the environment is hostile, and it goes into survival mode. And one of the things that survival mode is to shut metabolic resources down, conserve more, save more body fat, because the body thinks, oh, man, next thing we're going to not have any food and we're going to starve to death. So what you're talking about is very, very interesting, because what you're saying is that just having simple feedback, like, you're doing well, can assuage that. But is there a more clinical way of handling this? Like does it pay to do cortisol level tests post workout and go, you know what, you just worked too hard today?
Here's what I'd say. Absolutely, yes, there's room for that. But let's take it one step further back, and that is there's a part of your brain, or there are parts of your brain, one area called the amygdala in particular, that helps you to decide whether something is stressful or not.
Uh-huh.
Right? It literally helps you go, that load on my hand, is that inducing stress? No, that's no big deal. I'm not worried about that. Versus another force, you're going, whoa, that's too much in the wrong direction or whatever, right? You have a stress response, okay? When you have this stress response, what it does is it undermines all while you exercise. For example, there's a hormone called brain-derived neurotrophic factor that your muscles produce as you're exercising. As your exercise starts to get a bit intense, this BDNF starts to be produced. And what BDNF does is it can cross the blood-brain barrier, and it can stimulate neurogenesis, can also stimulate the formation of new neuronal connections. It can also stimulate the production of serotonin, okay? Now, when you are stressed, when you're perceiving that this physical activity is stressful, that undermines the activity of BDNF, right?
Really?
So in other words, the cortisol response is the thing that will undermine that.
Uh-huh.
So it behooves us, if we really want to get the benefits of strenuous exercise, we have to perceive it as, I'm capable. This actually does feel pretty good. You know what? I'm not going to die. I can stop whenever I want to, right? But those are all things that have to be earned. So if, for example, my doctor says I have to do 20 minutes of cardiovascular exercise a day before I'm going to see any benefits, well, I'm going to take that client and I'm going to say, if you've done no exercise in the last 5 years, I'm not going to make you do this for 20 minutes. We're going to do this for 3 minutes, and we're going to make sure that it's comfortable, that you feel confident, and we're going to build on that. So it's never a stress to you in terms of your emotional connection to it, but it might be a challenge to your body, right? There's a difference. Right?
Very, very interesting.
There's a huge difference. Yeah.
I want to take a break. We have to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to pick up this discussion on the other side. We're also going to tell you how that you can utilize some resources at Jacques' website if you want to reach out and learn more about what we're talking about. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking with Jacques Newell Taylor, and his website is myotopia.training. No. It's is it myotopia.training.com? Is that what it is?
It's just myotopia.training.
.training. That's one of the new designates. .training. That's so cool. Myotopia.training. And you can reach out to him and learn more about this. So I want to share with you and the audience 2 phases of my life and my training and get your opinions. So when I was training in a more powerlifting style, my body actually crashed on me. I got very sick. But my leg and back sessions would start to worry me the day before, because I thought I was handling extremely respectable and heavy weights, and I was worried that, I'd blow a disc or some of the inevitable things that did happen later on in my life, like tear a hamstring and all that sort of stuff. They didn't happen until I was older. But I was always very stressed out about my training. Now, fast forward to when I turned 50. When I turned 50, I was in some of the best shape that I've ever been in my life, although I'm probably in slightly better shape now. But what I did when I turned 50, I had gone through a divorce. I was living in an apartment, and I was training a lot more what I would call freestyle training. I did what I wanted to do when I wanted to do, and I was doing a lot of stuff that had more to do with motion than lifting. Like I'd grab my power block dumbbells, I'd put on a good song that had a good rhythm to it, and I would do maybe 30 seconds of clean and presses, and then rest for 30 seconds, and I would do that. And I got shredded. I felt good. I slept well. There was no stress in that workout at all. It was fun. It was almost like dancing with weights. So talk about this. There's a phenomenon today. We watch people on YouTube or Instagram, somebody who's deadlifted 800 pounds 6 times. We think we need to be able to do that. And that's really eroding probably some of the neurological foundations for a lot of people.
Well, it certainly can be. It certainly can be. It's a really interesting thing that if you talk to athletes, though, at the top, I mean, really, top tier Olympic athletes, their mindset is far from one of waging war on the weight or must destroy this.
Right, crush it, grind it. Yeah. Right.
There's none of that. It is a very their mindsets are about almost uplifting, almost like a beautiful realization of what their body can do. So I think what is more common is when we're left to our own devices, when we don't have guidance, minds turn to what we think might be the best way to do it. And that is, okay, I got to get myself psyched up. Okay, this is going to hurt, but it's good for me, right? And it becomes deleterious. Absolutely becomes toxic because the benefits we can't even receive the benefits because we're undermining them because of the cortisol response, because of the stress response. So I think that what you managed to do quite organically it's tremendous. It's tremendous to be able to find something that truly feels good and something that you truly enjoy, and you can still work hard at it. That's fantastic.
Do you think there's any value to hypnotism or creative visualization in the context of our discussion?
Yes. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't. I know this sounds strange, but I don't know much about hypnotism. But I will say that the visualization, and the key part is be honest about the situation. So we're not trying to say, okay, I'm about to squat, 500 pounds. I'm freaked out about it. Like I'm not. That's not it. It is developing a genuinely healthy attitude about what you're about to do. And if you don't have it right now, it's starting to deconstruct. What are the issues? Why don't I feel that I can do this confidently with no pain? What are the strength deficits? What are the motion deficits? And then a skillful trainer can then design things for you so that you go, you know what? I actually feel confident now. I can go and do this. It's going to be some hard work, but I know I can do it, right? It's a very different scenario. What a creative personal trainer can do for you. So,
I'm sorry, you broke up just a little bit. I thought you were going on from there. So what you're saying really is that it has a lot more to do with the attitude in which you approach the tasks. And but a lot of people are negative about exercise in general, right? Oh, I've got to go do this today. I really don't feel like it.
Yes.
Does that literally take away from the results of the session?
It can. So think of it like this, okay? This is really, really interesting stuff.
Jacques, are you there? The last thing I heard was really interesting stuff, if you can hear me.
Okay. All right. So you're sitting in a chair.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
All right. You're sitting in a chair, and you go to stand up. And if your nervous system waited to adjust your blood pressure until you stood up, you'd fall over. You'd pass out.
Yeah, syncope. Right, exactly. They call that orthostatic. Orthostatic hypotension. Right. Right.
So before you stand up, your nervous system is anticipating that. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
My hypothesis is that if you are going into the gym with that negative attitude, your nervous system is anticipating all those things that are going to happen to you when you go in there. And right?
Right.
And that's not a good thing.
Right.
Versus an attitude of, this is going to feel good today. I'm perfectly capable. I know I'm going to do exactly what I'm capable of doing. I'm going to push myself a little bit, but this is going to be a good day.
Yeah.
Now, it's not to say that you could go in with one attitude, a bad attitude, and come out with a good one. I'm not saying you can't.
Yeah, you dropped out again. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can always hear you.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand. The signal coming out of the cell tower is stronger than the signal from your cell phone back to the tower quite often. That might be part of the problem.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's making it a little difficult to and probably for the audience too. It's going to create a little distraction. So, But let's talk about your website for a second, okay? So people can go to your website. You can work with people no matter where they live, right?
Yes, I think that there are some constraints on what I can do depending on what the individual needs. But yes, I work with people literally all over the world. There will be people that I will communicate with, and I'd say, hey, look, this is all we can do given the circumstances.
And you have two locations. It looks like West Palm Beach, Florida, but also Northeast Harbor, Minnesota, right?
Maine.
Maine. I'm sorry, Maine.
Yeah.
Maine.
That's all right. Yeah, that's where I am right now.
And where did the name Myotopia come from?
Myo meaning muscle, and topia meaning a place for. So myotopia.
Now you don't just focus on building muscle. You can help people lose body fat. I mean, it goes a lot further than just that, right?
That's right. And I would say that a name change might be in order because you're right. My focus is not just on muscle. Really, it's on how the nervous system influences muscle and fat, and how fat and muscle influence the nervous system. Did you know that your fat cells actually communicate directly with the brain?
Through hormones, that they produce, you mean, right?
Exactly, through hormones that they produce. So one of the things that is often neglected is how this adipose tissue, when you were trying to shrink it.
Yeah, you dropped out again. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay. Unfortunately, this is live radio, so I don't go back and edit anything. So those of you listening to the show right now are hearing dead air on Jacques' side. Jacques, can you hear me? I think we're going to have to end the interview because it's becoming a little too cumbersome to continue on. But what I will tell people is the email is info@myotopia.com, myotopia.com. That's the email address. Their phone number in West Palm Beach, Florida, as well as Northeast Harbor, Maine, is 323-578-9089. And the website is myotopia.training, myotopia.training. And you can reach out to Jacques there and get some more information from him. They definitely have an amazing program. I've heard a lot about it. That's why I wanted to have him on the air, because he's got some really interesting ideas and apparently has had a lot of success with people who have not had success elsewhere. So check him out. Of course, thanks to Shannan, Yorton, Penna for coming on and sharing this story today about how Quest Nutrition became what it is today. I had never heard that story before, and I'm glad to have allowed everybody in the audience to hear it as well. And that's it for today. Tomorrow's Friday. You know I'm off the air on Friday. But we have an amazing show on Monday. Patrick Dahlin, who's been on the show before, he's the guy who broke the research on how beef actually lengthens telomeres. We did that show before anybody else talked about it. He's coming on and going to drop some bombs on some ketogenic diet stuff that not even your ketogenic gurus that you pay attention to are up on. There is a ketogenic continuum, and we're going to be looking at the effects of the ketogenic diet on health and performance in some contexts that you will not hear anywhere else. I hope that you can tune in Monday live. Of course, you can ask questions on Facebook if you tune in live. Otherwise, listen to the podcast. We've got great shows all next week. I'm really looking forward to next week. Anyway, look, have a safe and wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday.